1. Chapter 1. "I want to give Tom a good education," said Mr. Tulliver. "That's why I've taken him out of the academy in town. It's a fine enough school if you want to be a miller and a farmer, and a better education than I ever had, but I want to send him to a better school. I don't want him to be a lawyer or anything, but he should write well and understand the law. Maybe he could be a kind of engineer or surveyor." Mr. Tulliver was speaking to his wife, a pretty blonde woman of nearly 40 years old. "You know best, Mr. Tulliver. I have no objections, but I think we should have the aunts and uncles to dinner next week. We should see what my sisters say about it," she said. "You can invite them to dinner if you like, Bessy, but I won't ask any aunt or uncle what I should do with my own son," said Mr. Tulliver defiantly. Mrs. Tulliver was shocked. "How can you say that, Mr. Tulliver? You always disrespect my family, and I want my son to stay close so I can do his washing and mending, and send him some proper food. Bessy, if you see a stick in the road, you always think you can't step over it. Don't worry about the washing. The important thing is to find a good school. You wouldn't want to hire a driver if he had a mole on his face." "When did I ever make objections about a man with a mole?" said Mrs. Tulliver. "I'm rather fond of moles. My late brother had one. And when did you ever try to hire a driver with a mole, Mr. Tulliver?" "No, Bessy, I wasn't really talking about a mole. I was trying to make a point. It's hard work talking to you. I need to think about which school to pick for Tom. I think I'll talk it over with Riley when he comes tomorrow. He has had good schooling himself, and should have some ideas. I want Tom to be a proper sort of man like Riley, a man who can talk and write well." "And then what's he going to do?" said Mrs. Tulliver. "I want him to set up an office in St. Ogg's. He can live at home with us." Mr. Tulliver paused. "But I'm afraid that Tom may not have the brains for it. He's a bit slow, like your family, Bessy." Mrs. Tulliver was not offended. "Yes, he is very like my father and brother. It's too bad he takes after your side," said Mr. Tulliver. "It's the girl who takes after my side, and she's twice as clever as Tom. Too clever for a woman, I think. It's fine for a girl to make mischief when she's young, but what kind of price will she get when she grows up?" "Yes, it is mischief when she's little, but it will become naughtiness." "I can't keep her clean for 2 hours straight," said Mrs. Tulliver. "Which reminds me, I wonder where she is now. Probably wandering along the river like a wild thing. I'm not sure she's so smart, Mr. Tulliver. She's always forgetting what I tell her to do. And she's funny-looking too, with brown skin like a mulatto." "Well, she can read almost as well as the parson," said Mr. Tulliver. "I wish her hair would curl. She's not pretty like her cousin Lucy. It's not fair that my sister Dean had such a pretty child." "Lucy takes more after me than my own child does." Mrs. Tulliver turned to see her daughter enter the room. "Maggie, what did I tell you about playing close to the water? You'll fall in and drown one day, and then you'll be sorry you didn't listen to your mother." Maggie took off her bonnet to show the dark, straight hair her mother was always complaining about. She was always pushing her heavy locks away from her gleaming black eyes. The action made her resemble a pony. "Maggie, don't throw your bonnet down there. Take it upstairs and brush your hair. You need to do the patchwork for your Aunt Glegg like a little lady." "Oh, Mother," said Maggie crossly, "I don't want to do my patchwork. It's foolish to tear things up just to sew them back together. And I don't want to do anything for my Aunt Glegg. I don't like her." Mr. Tulliver laughed as Maggie left the room. "Don't encourage her,"